he was not seeing Dr. Ferris. He was seeing in the violent clarity that was like a spotlight tearing every riddle open to him, the day he met Dagny for the first time. It was a few months after she had become vice president of Taggart Transcontinental. He had been hearing skeptically for some time the rumors that the railroad was run by Jim Taggart's sister. That summer, when he grew exasperated at Taggart's delays and contradictions over an order of rail for a new cutoff, an order which Taggart kept placing, altering, and withdrawing, somebody told him that if he wished to get any sense or action out of Taggart Transcontinental, he'd better speak to Jim's sister. He telephoned her office to make an appointment, and insisted on having it that same afternoon. Her secretary told him that Miss Taggart would be at the construction site of the new cutoff that afternoon at Milford Station, between New York and Philadelphia, but would be glad to see him there if he wished. He went to the appointment resentfully. He did not like such business women as he had met, and he felt that railroads were no business for a woman to play with. He expected a spoiled heiress who used her name and sex as substitute for ability, some eyebrow-plucked, over-groomed female, like the lady executives of department stores. He got off the last car of a long train far beyond the platform of Milford Station. There was a clutter of sidings, freight cars, cranes, and steam shovels around him, descending from the main track down the slope of a ravine where men were grading the roadbed of the new cutoff. He started walking between the sidings toward the station building. Then he stopped. He saw a girl standing on top of a pile of machinery on a flat car. She was looking off at the ravine, her head lifted, strands of disordered hair stirring in the wind. Her plain gray suit was like a thin coating of metal over a slender body against the spread of sun-flooded space and sky. Her posture had the lightness and unself-conscious precision of an arrogantly pure self-confidence. She was watching the work, her glance intent and purposeful, the glance of competence enjoying its own function. She looked as if this were her place, her moment in her world. She looked as if enjoyment were her natural state. Her face was the living form of an active, living intelligence, a young girl's face with a woman's mouth. She seemed unaware of her body except as of a taut instrument, ready to serve her purpose in any manner she wished. Had he asked himself a moment earlier whether he carried in his mind an image of what he wanted a woman to look like, he would have answered that he did not. Yet seeing her, he knew that this was the image, and that it had been for years. But he was not looking at her as at a woman. He had forgotten where he was and on what errand. He was held by a child's sensation of joy in the immediate moment, by the delight of the unexpected and undiscovered. He was held by the astonishment of realizing how seldom he came upon a sight he truly liked in complete acceptance and for its own sake. He was looking up at her with a faint smile, as he would have looked at a statue or a landscape, and what he felt was the sheer pleasure of the sight, the purest aesthetic pleasure he had ever experienced. He saw a switchman going by, and he asked, pointing, "Who is that?" "Dagny Taggart," said the man, walking on. Reardon felt as if the words struck him inside his throat. He felt the start of a current that cut his breath for a moment, then went slowly down his body, carrying in its wake a sense of weight, a drained heaviness that left him no capacity but one. He was aware with an abnormal clarity of the place, the woman's name, and everything it implied, but all of it had receded into some outer ring, and had become a pressure that left him alone in the center, as the ring's meaning and essence. And his only reality was the desire to have this woman now, here, on top of the flat car in the open sun, to have her before a word was spoken between them, as the first act of their meeting, because it would say everything, and because they had earned it long ago. She turned her head. In the slow curve of the movement, her eyes came to his and stopped. He felt certain that she saw the nature of his glance, that she was held by it, yet did not name it to herself. Her eyes moved on, and he saw her speak to some man who stood beside the flat car taking notes. Two things struck him together: his return to his normal reality, and the shattering impact of guilt. He felt a moment's approach to that which no man may feel fully and survive, a sense of self-hatred, the more terrible because some part of him refused to accept it, and made him feel guiltier. It was not a progression of words, but the instantaneous verdict of an emotion.